All right, Mr. Thompson's back here today. We're gonna dive into 6.1 today, which is really just a lot of review as far as the mathematics, as far as adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, and some language here for you, which I'm here to hopefully give you a 2 or 3 minute spiel about the language and go from there. So 6.1 in this chapter dives into polynomials. So the first thing we need to know about polynomials is what the heck are they? A poly means many, so polynomials are just a bunch of individual terms either added or subtracted together. So when you look right here in red, I have this negative 18x squared plus x cubed minus 5 plus 2x. That's a polynomial because we have different terms being connected with addition or subtraction signs. Now, typically 4 parts on these questions when they're just trying to get you used to the vocab and seeing if you understand what it is. Question number 1 says, can we take polynomial and write it in standard form? Right, well, what is standard form? Standard form, the first term is the term with the highest degree, or the highest exponent. So when we look at these 4 items being added or subtracted, the one with the highest exponent is a positive x cubed. So if we're going to rewrite this in standard form, we would put the x cubed first. Take care of that. Next we look, and then we just kind of go in descending order. I see an x squared. In fact, it's at minus 18x squared or a negative 18x squared, so that would come second. And again, always keep in account what that sign is. So then we look to see if there's an x term or an x to the first, and there is right here, the 2x. And it's positive, so we can put the positive 2x here. And then last but not least comes your constant, that negative 5. And so that's all standard form is. Writing in descending order from the highest degree down to the lowest. Once it's in standard form, you can identify your leading coefficient. Now your leading coefficient is the coefficient that comes first in your polynomial. So when we look here, the first term is x cubed, and its coefficient is that invisible 1. So the leading coefficient for this first problem is just the 1. It's whatever that coefficient is for the first term. And the degree of the polynomial is the degree of the highest single term, or the highest monomial. So when we look here, our degree is 3, so we would call this, when they ask you to identify the degree, we would say the degree is 3. And lastly, we'd like to talk about what the heck terms are. And terms are just the items that are being added or subtracted. Terms are separated by plus and minus signs. So when they ask you to identify the number of terms, we would just look and say, well, there's 1 term, 2 terms, 3 terms, 4 terms. So that's the basics today. I want you to get this down. I think we can do it without spending lecture time in class and jump to something a little bit more valuable. And we'll do from there. I'm going to give you a problem in a second. I'm going to flash the camera over. I'm going to ask you the same 4 questions to rewrite the polynomial I gave you in standard form, to identify the leading coefficient, identify the degree of the polynomial, and also how many terms there are. And there should be a Google document underneath it, a little form that you can take the survey with those 4 answers. Enjoy. There's your problem, 7x cubed minus 11x plus x to the 5th minus 2. Can you write it in standard form for part A? Part B, identify the leading coefficient. The degree of the polynomial for part C. And finally, how many terms that polynomial has. Please answer those 4 questions and record your answers on the Google form below.